Welcome back, boys. It's been a while, but I decided to make a video because today I finally beat my chess nemesis, and I want to show you how I did it. But before that, I just want to tell you a little bit about who this player is and why he is so difficult. So first of all, my nemesis is a man named Eric. Eric is over 2,200. At one point, I think he was 2,400. He has been beating me ever since 2007, ever since I was a little kid. Eric is top 50, possibly even top 40 in the state. I've looked up his chess history. This is somebody that apparently beat Nakamura once. Um, Basically, he's just a very strong and challenging player, and this is someone who has just beaten me continuously. I've beaten him here and there in blitz and rapid, but when it comes to classical, I think he was something like 8 or 9-0 against me. And even multiple times I've been up a couple of pawns, I've gotten him down to 1 second, but he always found a way to trick me. But today I finally managed to beat him, and I want to show you exactly how I did that. So first of all, the game started with this: d4, knight f6, c4, c5, d5, e6, knight c3, captures, d6. So this is a Benoni defense. Here I played e4. So with here the battle lines are set. White is going to clog the light squares, and black is going to try to go after these dark squares. So g6, knight f3, bishop g7, bishop g5. This is, I think, the Averbach or the Gulkesh variation, depending on who you ask. It's a little bit abnormal, but still it's very good. So here, castles, knight d2. The idea is we want to bring this knight around and put it on c4. The knight on c4 will help us fight for this dark square, but also attack the weakness on d6. Possibly this bishop will come into f4 to help us out. Here my opponent played knight a6, and the idea is obvious. Assuming I do something like this, knight c7, castles, just to show you, he's going to do something like this and try to storm me on the queen side using this knight for support. So I knew that this was probably not the best move, but I did it anyway because it gives me clear battle lines. So the idea here is actually pretty interesting. As a Benoni player, black probably likes this because black's rook's going to go here. It's going to coordinate with this bishop. It's going to put pressure on b2. My rook is there. And he gets two bishops, so it's a great way for him to attack. However, I like this because there's three pawn weaknesses for black that if too many pieces come off, these pawns are going to be targets. So the other reason I like this is after I castle, rook b8, queen c2, rook e8, I can put the pawn on f3, and now I'm going to have beautiful light squares with a dark squared bishop. This pawn's going to go to b3, and I'm just going to have a very harmonious position. Now, in exchange for that, black has much more active pieces. So if you look, this rook, for example, controls a lot of squares compared to this rook. So does that rook. So his pieces are more active, but he has weaknesses. So here I play rook d1. I just want to very simply get off of this diagonal, and I want to put this rook in line with this pawn. So if I break, I can push this pawn down the board. Here, bishop d7, knight c4 going after the pawn, bishop to b5, b3 defending the knight, knight d7 going after e5. And here I played one of the best and most interesting moves of the game, and that's knight b1. So the idea of knight b1 is pretty simple. I want to either go to d2 or a3 to control c4, and in the meanwhile, I want the queen to defend c4 so I can take back with the queen instead of the pawn. So here my opponent played a5, and it's clear he wants to push a4 and trade his double isolated pawn for my not weak pawn. But I found this nice move, knight a3, and this move is very good. So first of all, in this position, I would never take this bishop because it would fix his pawn structure and he would just start attacking me. But in this position, now I can actually take this bishop and make sure he keeps those bad pawns. So here my opponent plays bishop a6, getting out of the way. I play rook e1, just getting out of the pin. Knight e5, attacking me on c4. Bishop d2, and now we're starting to highlight the weaknesses of his pawns. So in this position, if he played a4, not sure what I would have played, but possibly I either would have played bishop a5, possibly bishop c3, maybe even takes and trying to play rook b1 and knight to b5 or something. But instead, he played a very Eric move. What he did is he played rook b4. Okay, and it looks weird because I can just take this, but it's not as simple as it looks. So first of all, I did take. Taking was not the best. F4 was the best. But if you take, let me tell you what he thought he had and then what he actually had to play. He thought he had this move because it looked like he was pinning the knight, but he doesn't. Because when I take here, my queen is actually defended by my knight on a3, and it's his queen who's in danger. So if he takes and I take and he takes, this is much better for white. White's going to play knight d4. I'm going to put the rooks on the c file. The knight's going to plant itself on c6. So instead, he has to play a takes b4, but this is still very good. First of all, he undoubles the pawns. Second of all, he controls this entire diagonal now. And third of all, when I played what I played here, which was takes, takes, and takes, we really need to take a look at the resulting positions. So first of all, I have an extra exchange, rook for bishop, but every single file, A, B, C, D, E, all the way down is closed. There's pawns on every file. So rooks are only good if they have files to work on, and I don't have a single file. It's completely closed. So the only reason that I went for this wasn't actually because of the rooks, it's because of the knight. So first of all, the knight is able to close this bishop, and it's able to hit a bunch of dark squares and maybe take this one. So the knight is giving me enough time to reorganize my pieces and break. So first of all, Eric plays bishop c3. And again, this is why it's difficult to play him. If you look, first of all, this bishop is annoying me and covering all the squares. Second of all, the rook has no choice when it's attacked to go. It cannot go here because bishop d4 and he'll win the rook. So this has no choice but to go to e2 or f1 and step into a pin. Okay, and if you look, his bishops are controlling a lot of squares here. So here he plays bishop b5, I play king h1. Now at least if I move the rook here or he plays bishop here, it's not check. a5, rook d3. So the idea here is simple. If he plays something like king g7, I just want to take this with check. He moves out of the way. I don't want to go after a5 just yet, but probably I'd play something like queen f6, and I would just be up a pawn and going after d6 here. So he cannot really let me take that bishop, so he plays bishop back to g7, rook d1. And so with this, I have to try and make my plan. I need to find a way to get all of these pieces out of this diagonal and then crack the center open. In the meanwhile, he's going to do this, h5, and either attack my king, or he's going to do this, a4, which is what he played, takes, and take this open file. And I cannot contest that because his bishop is going to be covering the square, so I can't get to a1. With that said, I like the idea of queen c1, which is what I played, because first of all, at some moment, I might go to f4 and attack d6, but also my rook now has a square on c2. The rook on c2 is very, very good. It gets out of the diagonal, okay, and now this knight is free to move. So here takes, rook a, or sorry, pardon me, takes, captures, and rook a8, and he controls this file now, and I cannot challenge the file. So my first idea was to play queen c2, but then if you notice, this rook is trapped. It has no moves. The other thing is that my opponent set a trap for me here, because it looks like I can play rook takes b4, but this just loses because, first of all, he can't capture because I'll take his queen. But the reason it loses is that he can play rook to a8, and if I take the rook and he takes, and I take the bishop, then this rook is hanging, and then it's queen versus rook, and he's going to win. Right? So this is very typical of the way Eric plays. He tries to put you in positions where moves that look good are actually just traps. So I found this move instead, and the idea is clear. I want to play f4, e5, and break the center open. Plus, I want to defend b3. So here he plays rook a3, attacking the pawn on b3. f4, beginning the attack, queen c8, and e5. And in this position, I knew that I was just completely crushing. So first of all, we've closed out this bishop. The pawns are moving. This rook isn't doing anything, and this queen isn't doing anything. And now, even though he had the advantage of the bishops, and even though he had the advantage of there being no place to attack, in this position, the files are going to open. And that means the rook is going to be stronger than the bishop. So here he played queen e8, rook e4, captures, captures. Rook e4 is a very good move, by the way, because now I'm threatening to take, come in here, and then promote this pawn. So he captures and I capture, queen a8. So again, this is very typical of the way that Eric plays. He does not ever like to be slightly worse and defend. He always prefers to counterattack. So what he's doing is he's trying to put pressure here and maybe pressure here and maybe on the king and maybe come in here, as opposed to defending. But it doesn't work because I can just take this pawn. And now that I've captured this pawn, first of all, he can't break anymore. Second of all, I'm up an exchange and a pawn. And third of all, this pawn is just going to run. Okay, I can't do it yet because there's a rook here. But for now, it's clear white is much, much better. So in this position, black plays bishop f8, targeting my queen and defending b4. I play queen c4. The idea is simple. I want to play rook to f1, pardon, rook to f1, going after f7, and d6, try to attack f7. He plays here. I play rook e2. I just want to exchange his active piece. Rook a1. I can't capture this because then I get checkmated. After this, I just can only throw my pieces in the way and it's a checkmate. So what I do instead is I play rook e1. He goes back here. This is his way of saying, do you want to draw? But of course I don't want to draw because I'm winning. So here I play e6. And the idea is I cannot play d6 because I'm going to get checkmated. So what I want to do is I want to weaken his king. So in this position, he cannot play f6 because e7 will trap that bishop. If he moves, I'll make a queen. So he has to take. And then hilariously, there's no way to defend this pawn. If you play here, I'm just going to play queen over here and then come and checkmate you. You cannot defend. So he plays bishop g7. So here I found this nice move. And the idea is now I win another pawn, but the rook defends g2. So you cannot checkmate me, which means this pawn can run. And here my opponent played rook a8. So again, he found a nice little trick. If I captures, I just get checkmated again because I have to block and it's mate. But here I found a beautiful finish with a brilliant move. And if you're watching at home, you can try and pause the video here to try and find it. But I'm just going to tell you what it is. So if you want to look for it yourself, pause now. But otherwise, the answer is rook takes g7, which is a beautiful move. He cannot take this because queen d4 will win the rook. So instead, he has to play king h8. And then here comes the brilliant move, rook h7. Okay, this is actually amazing because if he goes here, we play rook h8. He plays king f7. We cannot take the queen because we'll still get mated. But we do have queen f4. And if he goes here, check, and we'll pick up this rook. So instead, he has to actually just capture the rook. But then this leads to the beautiful combination queen check. If queen here, queen check wins the rook. Same thing if here, queen check wins the rook. So what he has to do is he has to move to either this square or this square. So if he plays king g7, then queen check. His only legal moves are f8 or h8. Either way, queen check, and we win that rook. So in this position, his only move is king h6, but then we play queen e6. And in this position, my opponent resigned because no matter what, he's just losing. So if king g5, queen d4 check wins the rook. If king h7, queen f7, and whether you play h6 or h8, queen check here, and we just win this rook. So that's why when I played queen to e6, Eric resigned. I took a huge gasp of relief because he's always finding ways to trick me. But this time I made it work. So needless to say, I was just extremely proud of myself. I finally beat this guy. I beat this national master. I did it in a classical game. And by winning this game, I was finally able not only to beat him, but win this tournament and to gain some rating points. So I hope you guys learned something from this game. I hope you can use some of these ideas in your own game. And I want to encourage you guys as well that if there's a challenge you have, never to give up because this challenge took me 10 years, but I finally managed to beat this player and I'm very proud of myself for doing it. So till next time, guys.